I've got my friend Glenda Brady here, and she's involved with the Spartanburg Republican Party and also with a couple of other organizations in town, some grassroots type organizations. And I'm going to let her introduce herself, and then we'll talk a little bit more Second Amendment stuff.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for having me. As you said, my name is Glenda Brady. I am 4th Vice Chair of the Spartanburg Republican Party. I'm also, I head up a little group called Grassroots Spartans, where we try to get to what's going on in Spartanburg and in the state and in the nation. And it's a group where we're conservatives and we can push for things like the Second Amendment. It's very, very important to us that we have our gun rights in America. It's just very important that we keep those rights. Without them, I think we're just a sitting duck for the Democrats that come after us, and we're a sitting duck for the Russians who may come after us. We have to be able to protect ourselves. Not only that realm, but we also have to be able to protect ourselves from people who may come at us at a personal angle. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I can tell you a little bit about if you're interested.
Yeah.
I am a longtime gun advocate, and the reason being is that when I was a teenager, my father was actually murdered. He was not murdered by some stranger. He was murdered by someone that we knew. Mm-hmm. It was very, very hard. We lived in a very small town. I went to school with this man's children. It was just very, very hard. From that point on, we were considered on the wrong side of the tracks for a lot of reasons. It was just very, very hard. He actually met a man on a dirt road, and they proceeded to have an argument, and this man unloaded his gun into him, 7 bullets, into him, and left him there. It was very hard growing up because I had to deal with all the what ifs. Mm-hmm. You know, what if this had not happened? I had to go, this was back when I was 15 years old, so I have spent a whole life reflecting and looking back and packing and unpacking this and trying to make sense of it and trying to move on without my father. Mm-hmm. And trying to figure out how my life would be different had he been alive still. You know, we had all of the first. I had graduation, high school graduation. You know, there was an empty chair. When I married, my brother had to give me away. Mm-hmm. When I had my children, they never got to know their grandfather. And so it just goes on and on and on. I think about all the Christmases that he missed and all of the Father's Days. Father's Day is really hard for me because it's like he died on June 18th, and it's always right around Father's Day. So I have to unpack this whole thing every year around Father's Day. And I think it's been 48 Father's Days now I've had to be without a father. And I unpack this and I live every single minute of that day. I remember my mother and my uncle coming to us, and I remember them telling us what happened and trying to grapple that. I remember going into the bathroom because he had just left the house and he had just had a shower, and I remember smelling that cologne and thinking, you know, I'll never get to smell this again. You know, this is my last time. And I sat in that bathroom on the rug, on that little shag rug they had back in the 70s, and mm-hmm. just took in all those smells and just tried to soak up the last few minutes I had of those memories. Now, if he had had some way to protect himself with him, which he did own guns, but he did not think he was at risk of dying that day, or he wouldn't have gone. I mean, come on. Yeah. So, but if he had had a gun with him that day, he could have protected himself. My life would have been different. Certainly my brother's life, who really, his life took a whole different spin from mine. And, you know, my brother's life would have been different. Of course, you know, we don't know how things would have ended up, but I just know if he had had a chance to protect himself, that things could have been different for my family. And also, as a woman, you know, when I go out daily, I'm packing. I pack every day because I know what can happen. Yeah. I mean, I've experienced it. I know what can happen. Sometimes with people that you even know. So that's a little bit about my story. I won't dig much deeper than that about that story, but a gun, his having a gun could have made such a big difference in our lives.
Yeah. And the right to defend yourself is key to the Second Amendment.
Absolutely.
And gun ownership is part of that, and it's being able to defend yourself against folks like that. It's not a right given by the government. It's a right given by God that we can protect ourselves with our guns or whatever other types of implement we need to use to be able to defend ourselves. So, yeah, that would have made a lot of difference. You know, and it's hard to say what kind of difference it would have made, but it would have made it would have been different.
Well, not only for my family, but for the person who murdered him, his family. And this is a little caveat that happened. My brother died, and so about 3 years ago. And after his death, and this man has since died, the man who murdered him. And his daughters called me, which was, I had not talked to them in all these years, in 40-something years. I had not talked to them. And you know, you have to think about the impact all of that had on that family as well, because they said, Glenda, you know this story, we know this story, and we're the only 3 people left that really know what went on in our lives and how we had to grow up like this. And so, you know, I felt so sorry for them.
Yeah.
Because it was no more their fault than my fault. And yet they had to live and have repercussions from this incident just like I did.
Yeah. Your thoughts on the new law that we have, the open carry with training?
I love it. I think that everybody has a right to protect themselves. Personally, I'm not going to come out like, you know,
Dirty Harry?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be Dirty Harry. But there are people that can carry, and frankly, when I'm in a room with somebody that I know is carrying and I know that they are people of substance, I feel safer. You know, I feel protected. And that is something that was taken away from me as a young teenager, was feeling protected.
Right.
You know, I never felt safe again. And now this is turning it around for me, because I can protect myself and I can be around fellow citizens who I know would protect me if I needed to be protected.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of good things in the law, and it's one step closer to what we would really like to have with the full constitutional carry, but it's at least a step forward.
Yes, it is.
That we've made there.
And I salute our guys in the legislature. I mean, they had a hard fight. They did, and I appreciate them. I appreciate Josh Kimbrell. I appreciate all of the ones that stepped up. Roger Nutt, I appreciate all of them who stepped up and said, you know, it's time for us to do something. No, they didn't get all they wanted.
Yep.
You know, they didn't get the big piece of the pie, but they got a big chunk. And I am just so appreciative for that. And I know they'll go back and they'll fight for us again. And that's what I do as a grassroots person.
Yep.
You know, I get out there and push them along. I mean, I can't tell you how many phone calls I made or how many texts I made saying, okay, guys, we got to get this done. You know, this is something we need to do. And you need to have that kind of relationship with the people in the legislature, because if you don't cultivate those relationships, they're going to think you're a nut and just say, oh, you know, whatever. But they know me and they know how I feel. And so they will listen to me, I hope, and know that I'm not a nut.
Yeah. Yeah. So, in your opinion, is it better if somebody wants to try to talk to the legislature to do a generic form letter type thing, or send more of a personal note?
Oh, personal note, absolutely. I mean, they see form letters all day long. I mean, they do. And what is so good about how we interact with our legislators, and we being my grassroots people, is that we develop those relationships. And so, you know, I can call them up and they know, they have me, I have them on speed dial and they know who's calling. They'll go, oh my, here's Glenda again. But, you know, they're always so good, and I can tell them my perspective and they will listen to me. And and it's not just me. I mean, they'll listen to anybody that talks in a calm, rational manner. I mean, there are people out there who, you know, they just go off on the deep end, and I am sure if I was in their seat, I'd tune them out because I wouldn't know if I could trust them and what they said. But it's important that we express ourselves to our legislators. It's important that we let them know whatever the case may be. Of course, in this particular case, we're talking about gun rights. Even if we have something important like the heartbeat bill, so that we can call them and say, look, we've got to get this passed. We want to save babies in South Carolina. That's important too. And it's important to cultivate these relationships. Yeah,
and it's also important for folks like us to talk to the legislatures so that they get a more accurate picture of what everybody is feeling rather than taking the mass media, so what they're telling everybody, and it's not an accurate picture of what's going on in the communities.
Right. Even our local newspaper has gone just straight up liberal. Most of the articles in there are not even local articles anymore. There's a lot of them from USA Today and all these other places. And if they listened to the media, they'd be flaming liberals. And I am so happy that our legislators here in South Carolina, especially in Spartanburg, are conservatives and will push for conservative ideas and things that we conservatives really want.
So if you're concerned at all about gun rights, get to know your local politicians. Start at the local level, and then go to the state level, and then get to know your national representatives as well, because those guys, they need to hear from their constituents rather than all of the K Street people up there in Washington that are trying to push some agenda that is not good for the country.
Absolutely.
So Glenda, if somebody is interested in getting started or trying to come up with things that they need to do if they're concerned, what would you recommend that they do?
Well, they need to, first of all, get involved in local groups. I personally have my own Grassroots Spartans group, and we typically meet the first Monday of each month. Sometimes it's not, depending on holidays and whatever, but you can go to my Grassroots Spartans Facebook page and always follow us. Also, you can cultivate that relationship with your legislator. I think it's very important that they know you and you know them. That's one of the things that I push as the leader of that Grassroots Spartans group. And also, I would be remiss if I did not say, if you don't own a gun, get yourself a gun and get yourself some training so that you will know how to use that gun. To me, that is just very, very important, especially for women. I don't have the brawn that a man would have. I can't. I don't have that brawn. And it's just important that we have a weapon to protect ourselves.
The gun is a good equalizer.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Get involved and get to know your local politicians so that when something comes up that is Second Amendment related or some other gun law that might be out there or some other law that you might be interested in, you have somebody that you can go and talk to and make a difference just by getting involved yourself. So check out doublelegalgunworks.com for more information. Like and subscribe down at the bottom, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.